Okay, can everyone see my screen? Or Francesco, can you please help me confirm if you can see the screen being shared? Just want to make sure.
Hi, Abhi. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I can see your screen clearly.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So I'm just going to get moving on the session now. Thank you, everyone who's here. I'm going to spend probably the next 45 minutes or so talking about social media for business. I think the format of the session will be best to kind of go through the slides and then we can do a Q&A at the end. But if you have any burning questions, by all means, please feel free to post them into the chat. I think Francesco will help keep an eye on there and just kind of give me a nudge or let me know if there's any questions that anyone's got, or put your hand up, raise your hand. But without further ado, I'm going to get rolling on the presentation. Just like to let you know as well that we will share the slides and some extra resources after the session. The session is also being recorded as well, so the workshop will be available on demand. So for this session, which focuses on social business, the main learnings that we expect or we hope that you'd get from it is have a better understanding of how social media can help your business grow, and essentially the steps that you need to take to produce or to develop or create a solid social strategy. And then very importantly is how can you measure that the strategy is working? It's key that you're able to measure success. If it's working, great. If it's not, then how can you start to kind of, shall I say, rework your strategy to make sure that it works in line with your business goals and objectives? Very quickly, social media allows you to reach, nurture, and engage with your target audience. It's one of the biggest ways to reach an audience now. And we'll see that your customers are using social media regularly. It's a big part of their day-to-day. I think obviously in many places across the world now we've come out of lockdown or the level of restrictions that were imposed during COVID, but we saw an increase in the use of social media and people being online during the lockdown periods. And I think if your customers are on social media, then it's important as a business that you're able to engage with them on there, you're able to reach them, you're able to connect with them, enabling you to build your brand and grow some sort of brand community. And if you can do this effectively, then these customers will essentially become loyal customers to you. Your audience lives on social media. I think in the UK, we have over 42 million active social media users, which is a significant portion of the population. And on average, I think each person spends up just under 2 hours a day on social media platforms. I think it's about 8 hours online, but 2 hours of that is spent on social media on any device, be it on their laptops, desktops at work, mobile phones, or tablets. So what are the main reasons that businesses might want to use social media? I think this is a survey that was done by Mention a while back, but you could see that brand awareness is one of the most important. Community engagement, to kind of engage with your followers, with your fans, your audiences, to distribute content, whether it's fun content, thought leadership content, whatever it may be. There's different types of content, but I think these are the main reasons why any business might want to use social media. And I think some of you will be looking at this now and thinking, yeah, that's the reason why we do what we do. It may be just to sell, maybe to share, maybe to provide extra customer support, because we've got a lot of our audiences or customers engaging or reaching out to us on social media. And I think when we're looking to kind of create goals later, when we start talking about translating business objectives into social media goals, these are what we're going to have in mind. And also it's going to be the basis on which we start to decide what KPIs or key performance indicators we want to use to be able to measure success. So I'm just going to delve into social media strategy now. What are the steps that we need to take to be able to develop a solid strategy for your business? And I think we've gone through this using a framework to make sure that you can apply this across the board. But before we delve into what the framework is, I think it's very, very important that businesses carry out an audit. On this slide, it just kind of summarizes the importance of a good social media strategy, which essentially is to help you build brand love. for you to be able to engage your customers in a way, or your audiences in a way that makes them start to kind of have a positive sentiment to your brand and start to love and engage with the contents that you're sharing is vital. And I think by doing this, you're able to produce a better customer, a more loyal customer, or a customer who's willing to share their story with others. So essentially, your customers become your ambassadors, and they're able to amplify your content or spread the word online about what you do, whether it's the services you provide or the products that you're selling. So if you're looking to create a new social media strategy, you've already been running social media management. It's important to take stock of where you are at the moment before embarking on creating a new strategy. This will enable you to understand what's been working, what hasn't, what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be improved. And I think what we've done here is break it down into 4 different areas, and the 5th bit is about a summary for you to go through. I'm just going to quickly check the chat. I was wondering if yes, the recording will be shared, Gina. So yeah, we have to look at the network inventory, we look at the posts that have been made, and we look at the current strategy if there is one. If it has been a bit of an ad hoc approach, then you start to look at what kind of content has been successful for your audiences. So by looking at that inventory, we can see what content has worked, what's gone viral, what hasn't, what's got lots of engagement, what hasn't. And we start to understand actually maybe our audiences are more interested in a particular type of content than another. You have a review of your policy. What's your social media policy? What's your approach to posting, the frequency of your post, type of content that you're posting? And also look at your general brand activity. Some businesses may be using social media listening tools. You'll be able to use that to kind of get an understanding of where you've had mentions. Also look at some of your partners and see what learnings you can take from them and your competitors, and see actually what have they done well. What are their audiences like? Are their audiences mentioning them, engaging with them? And what learnings can you take from this to implement into what you're doing moving forward? And I think when you look at all of this, you can put it into a nice, neat report summary that you can then use as a reference point when deciding to build your new social media strategy. So we have 5 steps that we use on creating a social media strategy for brands. Firstly, anything that's going to work for your business, and every business is different, is to understand what your business goals are. Your business goals essentially we change into social media goals. We translate that. By understanding your business, we can then understand how we can use social media to help you achieve those goals and objectives. Then we then explore audience. We then look at the right social media platforms. There's hundreds of platforms out there at the moment. It's near on impossible for any brand to be present across every single social media. But if we understand your audience, then we can understand what platforms are best for us to go to use to engage with those audiences. And then we need to explore content and think, what kind of content do we want to share? Also our brand story. Within the resources we have, what kind of content is best? That can kind of fit within our budget. If you have a big budget, then you can kind of create loads of content in-house or with a design agency that you can post. But if you don't, then you might want to use more user-generated content, which doesn't cost a lot, but it's your audiences sharing, creating content. Maybe they visited a location or they talked about you or mentioned you, and you kind of resharing that and using that to kind of engage the other members of your audience or create some content. And then more importantly, how do we know if our strategy is working? We need to look at measuring success. So we'll touch on that as well, and we'll look at the KPIs that you can kind of keep track of, how often you can keep track of them. If you've created a strategy, it's not just there for you to kind of create and then say, okay, we've got a strategy. We need to, when you want to measure, it's some KPIs need to be measured, shall I say weekly, some monthly, some over a quarterly. So as a business, you need to establish what those are. So delving into business goals, I think when you're translating your business goals into social goals, you need to, once you establish what your objectives are, we can then look at the ways that we can use social media to achieve those objectives. And if, for example, one of your key objectives is to grow your brand, I think many businesses have that, then one of the best ways that you can actually do that is to use awareness metrics to illuminate your current and potential audiences. If you want to kind of drive leads and sales, which many businesses need to do, then you need to look at conversion metrics. So it's this conversations and it's a typo. These metrics will demonstrate the effectiveness of your social engagement. So think examples, and you see this later when we delve further into the KPIs for each social media goal, because we turn the business objectives into social media goals. And then each of those social media goals, we need to be able to measure whether or not we're achieving them or we're getting close to achieving them. And so we need to use particular metrics or key performance indicators to enable us to see, okay, are we achieving our awareness goals? Are we achieving our conversion goals? Or are we actually achieving our customer or consumer satisfaction goals? We'll delve into that in a bit more detail as we go through the slides. So which of the following goals is your organization trying to achieve with social media? And this was another survey that was carried out. No surprise on there that these will probably be, these are the top ones. These are the top 5, shall I say, goals that businesses want to achieve. And no doubt building brand awareness is always at the top. It's also about managing brand reputation and also building and managing an engaged community. If you can build a community and if you can turn your audience into a community of engaged and loyal fans, they'll also become customers, but they'll also be the best type of customers who would also talk about your products and services, as we mentioned earlier. So it's very, very important that we start to, that as a business, not only are you engaged, are you sharing content, are you managing your reputation through looking at social listening and just kind of making sure that you're coming across with your best foot forward, but it's also that you engage in your community. Also, you want to increase conversions and sales, but social media is not ultimately just about sales. The long-term strategy should be about sales, but the content you share shouldn't just be about sell. It should be about selling to engage, selling to create interest, and sharing content that's fun with your community. And I think if you do that, ultimately, that will lead to better brand loyalty, better brand love, and ultimately better conversions and sales in the short to medium term and long term as well. And also, it's a great way to gain market insights. There's lots of insights on the social media platforms, but if you're using social listening tools as well, social management tools as well, then you can actually grab a lot of insights from the dashboards or from those platforms that enable you to kind of improve your strategy. So when you're creating, shall I say, goals, your goals need to be smart. And the framework we use is the SMART framework. Essentially, your goals should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. If they are, then it means that you're able to actually track the success of these. And I think it's very easy to remember. Do you know what I mean? But if you look at some example goals that we've put in here for a brand, you could increase monthly brand mentions across all channels by 12.5%. It's most likely attainable. It's time specific. It's relevant. And there's a few other examples in there. Increase social media conversion rate by 9% in the next 90 days. So by having goals like this, it means that you can actually measure them and you can have them over a time period. If we just had increased social media conversion rate by 9%, that just goes into infinity. So we don't have a specific time period by which we need to measure whether or not we've achieved those goals. Ultimately, we can just go, forever in the aim of achieving that. By having them as time-based goals, we're able to then at that time period be able to track how well or how close we are to achieving that particular goal. So now I'm going to move on to audiences. I think it's very important that you understand your audience. Social media platforms have a wide range of audiences. Demographics can change across platforms. I think, for example, you might have a younger audience on Instagram than you do have Twitter or even LinkedIn. And also B2C brands that are really looking to B2C brands would want to kind of engage more on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. But B2B brands will feel maybe they're more likely to get better results by engaging on LinkedIn. So it's very important that you understand who you're talking to, because that will help you choose what platforms that you want to kind of engage them on later on in the session. We'll talk about that. But one of the most powerful things that I'll say about understanding your audience is that if you create content for everyone, then you create content for no one. So you have to be specific and understand who who you're writing your content for and speak to them. You know, people engage based on emotion or buy based on emotion. If you can really kind of connect with them directly, then you're more likely to have an impact or get the results that you wanted from sharing that particular content. So the best way to do this is to create audience personas. This is where you really dive through and create kind of a semi-fictional character of who your audiences are. By doing this, and you don't have to have just one persona for your audience. Your audiences can be quite wide. So you could have 4, 5, 3, 2 personas of people that you want to speak to. And each particular post can speak to one or more of these personas. But by understanding who they are, the content or the copy that you write in your post, or even the creative you create, is more likely to resonate with them than if you just kind of create a generic bit of content that doesn't speak particularly to anyone. Some of the things that you might like to understand or pull together to be able to draw these personas or key areas that we think you should focus on are their gender. Give them a name. It doesn't have to be that's necessarily the thing, but it kind of makes it more realistic when they have a name. And I think when you're kind of creating your content, you're like, okay, we're writing this for John. John lives in Brighton, is a 28-year-old professional who works in digital marketing. He likes sports and doesn't cook, so he gets a lot of takeaways during the week. So by really kind of building these personas, we know how we can engage. If I was a pizza company, I might know that actually football's on the Champions League at the moment on the weekends. So maybe I want to write a post to John in midweek saying 2-for-1 pizzas for you and your mates, or on the weekend, 2-for-1 pizzas for you and your mates with free beer. And that's going to resonate with his lifestyle. And I think when we start to speak to our specific personas, then we're more likely to gain the results or garner a reaction that is more positive from them. So some other areas that you might look at, like hobbies, interests, values, things they're into, job titles, are they the budget owner, are they the decision maker, what industry do they work in? By really kind of drilling down into those personas, you'd find that you have a better understanding of your audience. And it means that when you start trying to discover what platforms or even what content that you want to share with them, that you're able to actually do this better. While we're on this area of personas as well, I think it's a good opportunity to also talk about brand personas. I think there's a lot of kind of maybe smaller businesses out there who may not have a strategy, and they might have maybe a teenage nephew or someone who just kind of finished college running their social media. And I think multiple people might post on the social media platforms, but the tone is inconsistent. One day it could sound like an older person, the next day it could sound like a young person full of beans, which is good, can be quite chaotic. And I think for every brand or business, you need to establish what your brand persona is, what are your brand values. Use that to establish a persona. These are some examples of celebrities that we're all familiar with. Is your brand a James Corden? Are you personable, humble, and funny? That could be something that you want to consider. You get 3 words that really sum up your persona. George Clooney, sophisticated, laid back, smooth, is another one. Or are you a Beyonce, strong, empowered, and alluring? You don't have to be any of these. You could be a completely different celebrity, but I think by being able to kind of put a face or celebrity name and pull 3 characteristics of their personality, that really helps you establish what your brand persona is. Just to make this a little bit easier, I think there's kind of 4 primary tones or voice dimensions. So once you establish your personas, how do you speak to your audience? How do you keep that consistency in communication? In some of the bigger businesses out here, you might have 3 or 4 people who may be managing the social media. So regardless of who's actually making the post or writing the copy at that particular point in time, if you've established what your tone of voice is, then it means that everyone can write consistently, and it will not be obvious to your audience that Mary or Jane or John or Steve is the one writing today. So a couple of things, funny versus serious, formal versus casual. If it was a large city law firm, I would think they'll have a more of a serious approach to the way they write. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't imagine my lawyer wearing jogging bottoms, or do you know what I mean? So I think I would want to see him wearing a suit. It gives me that sense of confidence that this person could represent me in whatever situation that they have to. You also want them to be respectful as well, and very matter of fact. But some brands might be more funny, they might be more casual. Do you know what I mean? So some of these kind of, should I say, football platforms, football community, I follow a lot of football on social media. They can be quite funny, and they can be quite casual. If you're, I don't know, House of Fraser no longer exists now, but if you're ASOS, for example, you might be casual, you might be enthusiastic, and you might be maybe a little bit serious. I don't know, it depends. But whatever you need, whatever it is, you need to establish as a brand what your tone of voice is. So some of the key platforms out there, hundreds of social media platforms are available these days. Some come and go. I think you've heard of the ones like Vine. Clubhouse is there, kind of had a bit of a boom during lockdown. I don't hear so much of it now, but it's still a great way to reach audiences. I think they were kind of iPhone specific, whether or not they've opened it to Android now is a completely different story. But there's a few main platforms that we're all familiar with. I think what I call the top 8. There'll be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube. Might have missed one out there, but those are the main ones. And Instagram is a very visual platform. It's mainly about photos and videos. It's a great way if you have products. If you have products that are very visual, maybe your coffee shop, to really kind of showcase. Oh yeah, Pinterest was the one I missed out earlier. It's a real place to kind of showcase really strong visual content. So yeah, use imagery to tell a story, use hashtags to organize the content so the right people can find it, and make sure that you're able to follow and engage with the right brands, people, and influencers as well. For Twitter, it's good for quick fire conversations and as a PR tool. Twitter is probably the amount of kind of active users is probably one of the smallest out of there, but it's also one that's kind of very effective. And it's a great opportunity for you to join conversations using the relevant hashtags, ask questions and run polls, retweet content that you find of use, or retweet content or partners that you want your audiences to kind of see. And also you can use pinned tweets to display important messages at the top of your page as well. I think people kind of who use Twitter and use it effectively tend to share anything between 6 to 8 tweets per day. So it's something where people just go in and quick post fire a quick post and they're out. Facebook probably has, I think, all of the platforms has the highest active users globally. You can use it to help customers find you and see what your business is about. I think you can even have your menu on there. You can have your address, you can have your website. There's a whole wealth of information that you could have on there. You can have customers message you, call you. So whatever business it is that you are, there is an opportunity to use your Facebook page to showcase all the important content or information that your audiences or customers will need to be able to engage with your business or brand. You can use GIFs and videos to generate interest and shares. Facebook or Instagram as well. So I think a lot of Instagram posts can be shared across to Facebook. So you can actually use the same content and share them across both platforms very easily. You do have to connect your Instagram to your Facebook page to be able to do that though. For LinkedIn, it's great for recruitment, great for building a professional network and connecting with peers. It's a great way to share product news and show thought leadership. It's a very professional platform. I like to call it a social media platform with a tie. It's a great way to encourage your employees to become brand advocates, and it's a great way for you to generate interest by creating special showcase pages as well. I think one of the most powerful things about LinkedIn is knowing that you can join the kind of groups, but anything you share on your company page, you can actually get your employees to be brand ambassadors and share that as well. Now I've kind of essentially focused on what I would normally call the primary platforms, and there's a whole list of secondary platforms. Like I said, there's so many platforms out there. Even for the top 8 that I'm listing here, you need to start with 1 or 2 that are most relevant, or 3. Depends on your resources, your budgets, your time. You need to make sure that you pick the best ones to start with, and when you get to grips with those, then you can add another platform. When you're doing this, a good approach to take is to split between primary and secondary platforms. So primary platforms are the ones that you actually constantly, shall I say, posting on, sharing on, engaging on. And your secondary platforms could mean that you have a presence, but you haven't really taken it to the stage of it being a primary platform for your business yet. TikTok is one of the fastest growing platforms out there, grew significantly through lockdown and continues to do so. It's a great opportunity to engage with Gen Z, the younger generation. And I think that the rise of TikTok will continue for some while now. YouTube is also actually a social media platform, mainly for video content. Pinterest is very visual, pinning imageries or pinning photos used, or the largest demographic on there is women between 40 and 55. And Snapchat is also a good one, mainly video contents and stories. Generally a younger audience on Snapchat as well. But I just wanted to mention some of the other platforms that businesses might like to reach depending on who your audiences or your target audiences are. So talking about content is a really wide area. So I'm kind of trying to give it a summary or give you an overview rather than delving into the specifics of how to create content. I think everyone has a different approach in that sense, but there's no doubt in my mind that good content is the key to success of any social strategy. Good content will resonate with your audience. It will get them to engage. And by them engaging, you can then start to build a community by responding. So it's absolutely vital that when you're considering your content strategy, that you think of the best types of content to share with your audiences to really engage them. And to be honest, you may not know this at the start, but I think trial and error is always a good way to do it. Test things. If something works, do more of it. If something doesn't work, then think of how you can change it up to make sure that next time it's more likely to resonate with that audience. If it continues not to work, then maybe it's just never going to get any traction. So some content types that you might want to consider, and this is not an exhaustive list, by the way, but these are just some things to kind of get you thinking. I think thought leadership content could be some stuff that you might post on LinkedIn, for example, for your B2B audiences. User-generated content can be shared across platforms. It could be that your audiences are talking or sharing content about your business and brand, and then you're leveraging that content to share with your audiences and get better reach or better raise awareness or whatever other goal that you're trying to achieve. Live streams, something interesting is going on in your business or you're an event, you might want to live stream that to your audience. It's very kind of, should I say, it feels very organic, it feels very natural. And I think live streams can be very powerful in that way. For businesses that have the budgets for it or have the resources, influencer collaborations can be some sort of content that you might want to use. I think you have a lot of fashion brands using influencers to share their content. So essentially, they're able to use their influence to reach the audiences of those influencers who these people follow. And I think that's a really great way to kind of really, shall I say, drive awareness, but also ultimately drive sales of your products or services. You could also have product posts. During lockdown, I think there's been, since lockdown, there's been an increase in social commerce with Facebook enabling Facebook shops and Instagram shops. What we're seeing now is the ability to actually tag your posts, your products in your posts as well, so that people can click through to your online, to your Facebook or Instagram shops, for example. And what we're seeing, we're expecting this social commerce is going to start to grow across other platforms as well, such as TikTok and Pinterest. And I think we also see it in some way on YouTube, where you're watching videos and there's linked products below the videos so that you can actually buy those products. So it's a big thing that we do. I think on our resources, on our website and the blogs, we've got quite a lot of content around social commerce if you're interested in finding out more about that. So some content best practice. I just narrowed this down to 3. Schedule posts in advance, but post frequently. If you're posting frequently, your audience will kind of see what your brand story is, but also more likely to engage, especially if it's content that speaks to them and is relevant to them. Have a good mix of, have a good content mix as well. Very type of content you're sharing. Don't just share videos consistently. Don't just share images. Think about the mix of content that you want. Mix of user-generated content, thought leadership content, whatever it is. And also consider content pillars. You might have a motivational Monday where the post that you share on a Monday is about motivational stuff. You might have a fun Friday or fun fact Friday, whatever it is. So get some content pillar ideas together and then kind of stick to that. And it allows you to not only build structure, but build consistency across the content that you're sharing. Also engage with your community. It's the best way to turn your audiences into loyal customers and then much better customers as well. So we've talked about creating or turning your business goals into social goals. We talked about audiences. We talked about creating content to engage those audiences. But more importantly now is how can we kind of circle back by measuring and so understanding, well, is our strategy working? And the best way to do this is by measuring performance. I like to call it measuring success. But we need to look at the KPIs. We need to look at the set goals, or the KPIs we attach to our set goals, and see, well, look at the set goals we agreed earlier, and then make sure that we're tracking the right metrics to enable us to understand if we're doing a good job or not. There's 4 key areas of metrics out there that you should be tracking, or categories, shall I say. And under, for example, awareness, you might want to track the brand awareness. What's your reach? Audience growth rate, the increase in followers over a period of time, your post reach, what you shared, how many people have seen it, how many people have engaged with it, how many people could it have potentially reached. Sorry, I put potential reach in there twice. That's an error. Your engagement metrics, if you want to drive engagement, is the applause rate. So it's likes on your post, for example. Average engagement rate is likes on your post compared to your number of followers. Your amplification rate is the ratio of shares per post compared to your number of followers as well. And your virality rate is the speed of circulation of your content. Has your content essentially gone viral? Good content can go viral. I don't know if anyone remembers the ocean spray video on TikTok. There was a gentleman in America whose car broke down, and he got on his skateboard and was just drinking ocean spray, listening to, I forget, I can't remember the name of the band now. But yeah, that went viral. And I think before we knew, millions of people across the world, I've kind of watched that within a week or two. Conversion metrics. What's your conversion rate? So yeah, percentages, how compared to the number of people visiting the website, how many people are taking actions that you value, whether it's sign up to a newsletter, buying a product or service, completing getting in contact with you. All of those things could be vital conversions that you want to track. Click-through rates would be how often people click, from the amount of people visiting, how many people visit your website from your posts. Your bounce rate, if you're not familiar with, is how many people go to your website but leave the website without taking an action on the first page. So that's a bounce rate. A lot of these you'll be able to actually track all those 3 through Google Analytics as well. You need to use the data in Google Analytics with the data in the platform, marry them together and be able to get the metrics that you need to measure in the cost per click for paid, and cost per impression as well. And then conversation rate is how often you actually engage in having conversations with your community or audience. Customer metrics are a very key way to understand sentiment. Are your customers happy about your brand or business? Are they generally happy? Do they have brand love, essentially? So are you getting positive testimonials? If you got customer satisfaction surveys, what are your customer satisfaction survey scores? Are they high? Are they about 80%, 90%? And Net Promoter Score, we measure the customer experience and the potential for business growth based on this as well. So these are things that you might want to implement or track to be able to understand how customers feel, or measured whether or not you're achieving success from the sentiment that your customers have. So just kind of sum this up. Sorry, this is missing the awareness area as well, but engagement, conversions, and consumer, social media goals, and then what metrics we might want to measure. Specific metrics are comments, likes, mentions. For conversions, we're looking at website clicks, email signups, phone calls to the business. And for consumer, we're looking at testimonials, social media sentiment. Social media sentiment actually can be measured with social listening tools as well, to see actually, do your customers, when they talk about your business or brand, do they talk about it in a positive way or do they talk about it in a negative way? I think by understanding this is kind of start to get an idea. But essentially customer insights. What can you change to improve the customer sentiment? If it's negative, and if it's positive, then what's the reason why it's positive, and how can you continue to maintain that? So a couple of things when we're thinking about measuring success is we have to look at the growth in sales, increase in traffic from the content we're sharing on social media to our website. Influencers, are we getting influencers, paid or unpaid, or are people becoming advocates for the brand? Are people mentioning our brand or business? We need to look at the improvements in customer service. the numbers of calls answered, your star ratings as well, whether this be within Facebook, because I know Facebook can leave reviews, or also some people might go through to your Google My Business page and leave a review within the knowledge card section as well. So finally, also, is there an increase in brand awareness? Is there an increase in reach? What are the number of mentions? What's the application rate of our content? So this is the considerations that you might want to have when you're looking at measuring success. So some other considerations around social media I just want to touch on very quickly are firstly community management. I know I've already mentioned this earlier and talked about how through community management you can build, shall I say, a more engaged customer, a more loyal customer, a better customer, and one that's more likely to share about your business or your brand. I think with community management, it's the way we do this. We can share good content, but if we don't actually follow up with engaging with the responses that are coming off the back of those content and managing the community, then it's a massive lost opportunity. So a couple of things that you want to keep track on and how you want to take action within community management. So view your likes, comments, reactions on social media posts. You want to do this daily, and you want to build an active, engaged community by connecting with fans, reply, share, comment, whatever it is in the right conversations. See what people are saying about your business with brand mentions. You want to track this weekly. There are tools out there that enable social listening, and it allows you to maintain a strong reputation by quickly responding to complaints. I think it's very easy for people nowadays when they're unhappy with a brand to go on Twitter and tweet something negative about your business. And you notice that some of the bigger brands, what they do very quickly is respond to that and try and take it offline, take them into the private chat. Because actually, if you deal with something very wrongly without empathy or showing an understanding, and this is done publicly, it can have a really negative impact on your brand. You might want to monitor keywords that are relevant to your customers. You might want to do this monthly by adjusting your marketing tactics based on the performance of selected keywords or hashtags. Collect regular feedback by sharing tailored forms on web or online. This is more about putting surveys out there. Do this periodically. This could be quarterly, half yearly, whatever it is. This is the opportunity to increase your review volume and average ratings on places like Yelp, Google, and Facebook. So some crisis management. So if someone complains online, something goes wrong, or maybe you're on a bar and someone got injured, there's lots of things that can actually that pose a risk to your brand, especially on social media where things can go viral very quickly. And I think for the bigger businesses out there, they will have a crisis management strategy. Small businesses may not necessarily have this, but it's a great way for you to handle issues quickly by establishing the scope of the crisis, how you plan to do it, if you have an internal communications plan, and also an approval process for responses. Do you know what I mean? If you had an account executive responding to something so significant without understanding the scope of the problem, it could really have a negative impact. So in certain cases, having those policies in place so that people can understand the communication chain of command before responses are put out when in a social media crisis. Paid social, highly important. We've talked mainly here about organic. The strategy has been focused mainly around, or most social media strategies is focused mainly around creating content and sharing that organically and engaging with your community. But paid social is also a great way to reach a wider audience. It's also a great way to put your products and services in front of the right audiences as well. So when you put an ad budget in the hands of the experts, you can push out multifaceted campaigns that hit the right people at the right time. I think one of the most powerful things about paid campaigns is the ability not only to reach people all over the world who may not necessarily be your fans or followers, but also to actually A/B test, create different creatives and see which one's more effective, and then kind of upweight the budget onto the more effective campaign. So I think we had an example the other day where we had two creatives for a campaign. One of them had 40 clicks and had spent £30 in an initial test that we did over I think 2 or 3 days. And the other one had 2 clicks and I spent £10. So you can see a 79p cost per click compared to just over £5 cost per click on the same event or same on the same thing that we wanted people to convert on, but one of them just seemed to perform better than the others. And these are the key things that we were able to do. And we think anyone who's running paid campaigns should really consider split testing to see what's more effective. Split testing across copy, but split testing across creative as well. A great way to develop bespoke advertising campaigns, make use of powerful targeting. You can also retarget your custom audiences. I know that with the iOS 14 updates, there's been the ability to reach people as kind of reduced a little bit, but it's still a really great way to reach the right audiences. But you can also retarget them with a pixel. If you have a pixel on the website, you're able to kind of retarget these audiences as well. So not move them from the awareness stage to the consideration stage, and hopefully turn them into a customer. You can kind of reach a bigger, wider audience if you're trying to grow into a new market. Creating ads can be a good way to do for that market, can be a good way to raise awareness initially that you're doing that. And also you can track and report to see, firstly, are you getting a return on investment? What's working? What isn't? Is your budget being spent in the right way? Where can you improve? And where essentially have you actually leaked money, or where has your money not been so effective? So the analysis of tracking and reporting enables you to be able to optimize the campaigns more effectively. That's everything from me today. I know I've had to move through that very quickly. I appreciate we're all busy and we have other things to get through too. Well, as I said, I kept that to 40 minutes. I think I said 45. We still have 13 minutes till the hour. So if anyone's got any questions at all, then please feel free to post them in the chat, and I will respond to them. But thanks for your time today. Listen to this session. We will be sharing a slide deck, and we'll be having the video put onto our website on demand so that you can actually go back and watch any of the content. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm just going to give a moment to see if there's any questions. If there aren't, I'd just like to say thanks for the time today.
Hi, Abby. There is one question in the QA session at the moment. So okay. Basically, the question is, how do you make an audience persona if your business is a very niche business, so a very small business?
Okay, yeah, the size of your business doesn't actually affect it. If you understand who the right people to reach are, then you should be able to build a persona. If you're a physical store, you might see the kind of customers that come in. So I think you can aggregate and say, okay, actually, most of the customers we get coming through the door are between 45 and 50. They're generally they might be all people who are in, should I say, professionals. They may have kids. You can also look at, for example, if you have a social media platform and you look at the followers on there, as long as they're not all your friends who just like your page to support you, you can start to pull insights from the audience data within the social media platforms. But ultimately, you should have an idea of who your audience is. And by doing that, once you have an idea of who they are, it's then start to build a semi-fictional. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You can start and change the audience personas over time because your audiences will change. But you should have who your ideal customer is and start to write towards them. And I think if you kind of communicate, eventually you start to hit the right people and you start to resonate with them. So yeah, if you have a niche audience, you still have an audience. It's about understanding who that audience is and making sure that you can build one or two or three personas around them.
So thanks, Abby. Another question is, what would you say is 360's brand persona?
That's an interesting story. Thanks, Gina. I think our brand persona is we're professional. We're a bit kind of very to the point about digital marketing, but we're also very casual in our approach. I think it's about being able to not only provide value for our customers, but do it in a way without that we communicate without the jargon. Do you know what I mean? We like to see digital marketing as fun, but apart from being fun, also a great way for you to grow your business. And I think our persona is, yes, we are a casual in approach, but we're also very professional in the way we communicate as well. Where I'm not sure we're James Corden, I'm not sure we're George Clooney, But maybe I tell you what, maybe next time I do this actually, Jay, now I'm going to actually think of a celebrity that best fits what we do, because I've never really thought about it that way. But I think the most important thing about what we do is because we're digital marketing, we keep it casual, but we're also very serious about the work we do and very kind of matter of fact about it. So I think those are the values that drive our persona.
Thanks, Abby. Maybe, yeah, one last question from me, actually, it would be how, as a small business, how can I understand what is a good budget to invest in social media?
It really, really depends. I think sizes of businesses vary and kind of availability of budgets, but the most important thing is that you have a presence on social media. If you need to do it yourself because you don't have the extra resources to kind of pay someone to do it or an agency to do it, then you have to dedicate time. And I think one of the things we hear from a lot of people is that they don't have time. But the challenge about when you're kind of maybe a very small business is people are wearing multiple hats. If you want to get the results, the consistency, you have to build a strategy, and that strategy will guide your behavior, your posts, and it will help you achieve the goals that you aim to achieve on social media. Without a strategy, you're basically just kind of out in the wild. Basically, there's no aim, there's nothing, there's no focus. So I would say, it really depends. But I think for us, we kind of speak to the brand. It depends what they want to achieve, how often they want to post. But I'll say a few £100 a month is kind of where we are able to speak with customers or brands about social media, and that can go and it can go up to thousands a month, depending on the scale of the project or the ambitions of the brand and what they aim to achieve as well.
Well, thank you, Abby. I don't see any other question in the QA.
Okay. All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time today. I hope you really found it useful, and we will share the resources. And if you have any questions, then feel free to reach out to us either via our website or via the email that's on the Eventbrite as well. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.